There's no fragments of silicon like the present.
All right, welcome to another installment of the Fragments Silicon Review. Daylight Interviews. It's still a bit groggy in the head. At any rate, joining us this week is Juho Kuorikoski.
You almost nailed it. I know it's a bit hard. My name is pretty hard for non-Finnish speakers, but if you can call me Juho, and I will be more than happy.
Juho,
yeah.
Right. Got one of those J sound as Y.
Yeah.
Of Horsefly Games, joining us this week. So, how are you doing today?
Well, thanks for asking. Pretty good. The week is over on Finland, and I'm gearing up for spending weekend, and of course, getting ready for Steam's Next Fest, which starts on Monday. So, yeah, things are looking pretty good. How about on your end?
It's busy. I mean, mainly because it's not E3 season, for a lack of a better term.
Yeah, all the publishers and stuff are presenting their games, and they're like, we used to have this easy when E3 was just a week. Now we have to have 20 different tabs open and several blocks of several weeks cut out to follow all this.
Yeah. So that's fun. At any rate, so how we like to get started is we like to get to know the people behind the games, the studio, and all of that business. And we begin by asking this particular question. What got you interested in video games, both on a personal and a professional level?
Well, I've been playing games since I was 6 years old. I started with Commodore 64 and moved to Nintendo Entertainment System after that. And I played through my youth, and when I think I was 12 when I found those classic point-and-click adventure games made by LucasArts, and that was, the first time that I started considering that maybe I could make games as well. So I studied myself as a software engineer, but then I thought that maybe I would rather be a journalist and write about games. So I did that for about 10 years, and then after that I started figuring out how to make games, and I've been on that road for the past 10 years or so. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell.
Okay, that's a rare path, not unheard of on this program, but we don't get people who often work on the journalism side then flip to the development side. But I suppose that does beg the question: who did you write for during your time with the pen and paper?
Well, I actually still write game reviews too. We have this in Finland. We have a gaming magazine called Pelit, which is games in English, and it's actually one of the oldest gaming magazines in the world that still comes out as in print form. And I've been writing there for I think almost 20 years, and that was when I started writing for them. Then I started considering that maybe I could actually be a journalist for full time, and then I had been working in newspapers for several years, and I ended my journalism career as an editor-in-chief of one newspaper. So that's basically my background in journalism. And I also written 8 books about Finnish game industry. So I've been quite productive in this writing business.
Right. It sounds like it. if nothing else, you are quite accomplished in terms of like getting material published. Like, so I suppose that comes to the grand question, and is what relit the creative spark? What made you say enough of the journalism stuff for the most part? I want to make video games now.
Well, like I said, that when I started playing those point-and-click adventure games, that was basically the first spark that I have had, and I remember thinking quite seriously back when I was a 12-year-old little kid that I could actually, it would be pretty cool to make these kinds of games, and I would say that it was somewhere around 2014 or 15 when a good friend of mine and I started talking that maybe we could actually do something together, and that was that was when we established our first game studio called Platonic Partnership, and we made it's a horror narrative point-and-click adventure game called Lydia, which was released in 2017. The subject matter of that game is substance abuse from a viewpoint of a small child. It's a pretty depressing stuff, but it actually but it was actually a pretty big deal here in Finland, and it was a good start for a starting game studio. So that was basically we made this thing, and others liked it, so that got us thinking that maybe we could do something more, and that's basically it. And then in 2021, when I founded Horsefly Games, I was in a position where I could start making my own thing, and I was able to figure out how to make games cost effectively. So I'm not a full-time game developer. I still have my day job. I do VR software at university with Unity, so I use the same tools as I use for game development. But now it's possible for me to spend a couple of days a week working on my own projects, which has been extremely cool. And for Hyperdrive In, I actually received a arts grant from Finnish Cultural Foundation. And they pay my salary for 1 full year. So this is actually the first time that I'm developing a game within office hours instead of weekends and nights.
Like, what's an interesting journey that it has been so far? And this is as good a segue as any to get into the main event, so to speak, and that is Hyperdrive In. So I suppose we should start with, what is this adventure title?
Well, this is actually an idea that I've been, toying around in my head for several years, because I think that one thing that adventure games aren't is that they really don't have replay value, and that's something that I want to explore with this title. And the game takes place in an infinite hotel, which is on the edge of collapse. Something very bad has happened, and the hotel is about to consume everything in existence, and the player must, of course, stop this from happening. This idea of an infinite hotel, it's based on a thought experiment by a German mathematician, David Hilbert, who has coined this idea of an infinite hotel. In short, it means that if you think about an infinite hotel, it's always fully booked, but because it's infinite, it can always accommodate infinite number of new guests. And I think for an surreal
there's
and
an old
absurd...
thought experiment about that, but I forget the name of it.
Oh, I'm sorry. What did you say?
There's an old thought experiment about the infinite hotel that always has room for more guests that I can't remember the name of.
Yeah, it's Hilbert's hotel paradox.
Oh, Hilbert, right? That's what it is. Thank you.
Yeah, and that's basically the core idea of Hyperdrive In as well. And the way it shows in the game is that every time you start a new game, a unique set of levels, a combination of levels is selected for you. So for every playthrough, the game plays out a bit different, and that's something that I'm very, very interested to see how the people will react to this, because of course there is a script and a story, but the way the dots are combined, it's basically somewhat of a unique experience for each playthrough.
So essentially, you have created a roguelike adventure game, or rather, point-and-click adventure game.
Well, yeah, but of course there is a limited number of content because nothing is procedurally generated. It's just the order is selected at random, but it does create pretty interesting results because no two playthroughs are exactly the same. So what's the most interesting thing for me is to see that how the people will figure out the story, because usually you follow the script and see how it starts, how it unfolds, and how it ends. But now when the randomization is here to making things a bit more difficult, it's nice to see that how people will react to this.
Right. I mean, there would have to be limits, since procedural generation and puzzles tricky at best.
Yes. And the way the randomization in the game works, that everything is handmade, of course, which is then randomized, because I don't want the players to grind through the game several times and just to see that there's one NPC that has a different color hat on their head. But we've been focusing on there isn't. If you compare this to, for example, some of the roguelike games where major parts of the content are randomly generated, it doesn't compare to that. But if you compare it to any other point-and-click adventure game, there is a lot of content, and we have been actually starting first rounds of tests this week, and there was this one tester who played it through and through, so he was able to test every level of the game, and he clocked in over 40 hours, which in my opinion is a pretty good number for an adventure game.
Yeah, I'd say so. Like, I'm struggling to think of an adventure game that would go on for that long.
When you say random, is it fully random, or is it more procedurally generated? Like, you can't get like one of the final levels first. It's more just like there's set blocks in each particular.
Yeah.
All right.
It's organized like that. There is these blocks of levels, and there are and these blocks are organized in a certain way. So because we are trying to tell a story, so it needs to have some sort of beginning, middle parts, and end, and you can't just throw everything out there and see how it combines together. So yeah, you're absolutely correct. There is a
procedure to it, not just full random.
Yeah. Yes.
Because we have had games roll across the desk where it's total random, and a run could last you 5 minutes, a run could last you a few hours.
Yep. And I suppose it's worth getting in deeper with the whole randomization. Like, how are things randomized? What is randomized? And so on and so forth.
Well, like I mentioned, everything is, there is a script is in the base of everything. Basically, when you start a new game, a set of levels from the blocks of different levels is selected for you. And when you complete that, the game is reset, and then you can play again, because the idea is that to get the full picture of the story, you need to complete the game several times. But there are safeguards in place that when you immediately after you have completed the first run of the game and you start another one, it's guaranteed that you won't be seeing the same content. So it's a completely fresh experience for subsequent playthroughs.
So does that mean there are would there be rooms that would not show up at all in a first playthrough?
In a sense, yes. Like I said, that you get one level from the block of levels, and when you have completed that, it's crossed out from that block. And when you start the game again, you won't be entering to that room, if that makes sense.
I think so. Like if you've encountered it the first time around, you're not encountering it the second time around.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly like that.
What I'm more getting at is like, is there going to be content that only unlocks like on a second or third or fourth loop of the game?
Yes, of course. I have to spoil a bit about the plot, but the last levels of each playthrough, they are in sequence. That when you complete the game first time, you will see some stuff that happened in the first run when you are completing the second round, because that idea of a repetition is a pretty important part of the story, and that's something that of course isn't revealed to the player until at the very end of the game. That basically there is a pretty cool concept on how these different playthroughs link together from the perspective of the story. So there's actual reason from the narrative point as well why the game has been structured the way that it has.
I see. And not sure if you can answer this in the here and now, but how many playthroughs would it take to see everything?
We have aimed to that there would be 3 unique playthroughs, but there's still some extra content that you won't see when you play through those. But I would say that if you play the game through and through 6 times, you probably have seen everything. But we have been entertaining the thought that because the game is structured the way that it is, the levels are stored in blocks of sorts. Right. It makes the structure pretty modular. So if the game is big enough of a hit, we can add content post-launch, and that's also a pretty interesting thing because basically, although there is this overarching grand narrative about the hotel, this is also a bit of an anthology type of a game, because these rooms, they are self-contained little story bits. So adding rooms post-launch is something that we have been definitely thinking about.
I'd imagine. And I suppose we'll address that in a bit. But for now, I do want to switch to the other major components of what it makes a point-and-click adventure game a point-and-click adventure game. That is the puzzle.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, how did you construct the puzzle elements in such a way that they would be compatible with this quasi-randomization structure?
Yeah, well, like I mentioned previously, this is these rooms, they are these self-contained little stories that link to the grand narrative, and it's actually pretty straightforward making content in this way, because the puzzles that are in the game, they are well, at some at some extent they do link to other rooms, but for majority of the game, you have that set of puzzles that is included in that one level. So this is a pretty compact. It's structured in a pretty compact way for an adventure game, and I think that it makes the game it's a pretty free flowing experience, and fast paced, because there is not that much of running back and forth, because the game is structured like this, and so basically the puzzles that you encounter are limited mostly on the room that's selected for you.
And is the game structured in a way that you can get to the end no matter what on a run?
Basically, yes, and there is we have been trying to make this so that you won't get stuck. There's always a easy way out and a bit harder one. If you want to stay and solve those puzzles, you are rewarded for it. Because the choices you make along the way, they affect the outcome, and there is this idea of a karma that we are using, that these easy solutions for puzzles, they are usually the ones that are morally wrong, because I think there is an idea. I like the idea that if you want to do something good, you need to put some effort into it, and so yeah, you won't get stuck, but you will be rewarded if you stay and solve those puzzles.
That is interesting, if nothing else. Like in times previous, that kind of thing would have been tied to a point system. Where the harder solutions would have cost more points.
Yeah,
they didn't do anything. They just, they were worth more points. It was the achievement system of the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
Like, at any rate, so what are some of the puzzles that someone would encounter in Hyperspace Inn, or sorry, Hyperdrive Inn?
Well, we have, of course, those classic inventory puzzles. There are mini games and dialogue-based puzzles. I can say that basically anything that you have encountered in LucasArts adventure games, you will find here, and that's basically been the the gold standard that I have been following while making this. You can't get killed. You are immortal, and so, which I think encourages people to try out different kinds of solutions for the puzzles, and I'm trying my best to integrate everything to the narrative, so there won't be, at least I'm trying my hardest to get rid of those, so everything should make sense story wise, so there is no superficial stuff, and it's not. I would say that in terms of difficulty, the majority of the puzzles will be on the easy side, because I want the game to be fast paced. But there will be some pretty tough brain teasers along the way. But you are, of course, welcome to skip them if you don't want to. You don't want to put in the effort. But if you do, you will be rewarded.
Like, will there be an in-game hint system as well?
Well, I have tried my best to, hide those hints into the game world. So because I think, in my opinion, this external hint system that's hidden behind menus or such, it takes away a bit of immersion. So I think the way we have been, combating this is to try to keep everything as logical as possible, and make subtle nods towards right solutions, but no, we are not having an external hint system.
That does make sense. A hint system can be a tricky thing to pull off. Like, in fact, in a recent game review, I dented a title for basically having a freewheeling hint system that, kind of, you can use it to just literally walk through all of the solution.
Yeah, and I think that integrated hint system, it kind of takes away a bit of the magic of point and click adventure games, because when I was I think I was 7 or 8 years old. No, I was a couple of years older, because I was already fluent in English. And I was playing the first Monkey Island game, and I don't remember what puzzle it was that I was stuck in for several days. And because there wasn't no internet back then, it required that I hopped on my bike and I biked to the nearest library, which was 9 kilometers, 5 miles away from my house. And I scoured through old gaming magazines, hoping that somebody else has asked the exactly same thing, same thing from their their own hint articles, and I think that internet and these hint system, they have some of the magic has been lost. It's too easy to find walkthroughs from the internet these days.
I mean, that's just the nature of modern times. It's like there's nothing that's ever going to bring those particular times back, so to speak.
Yeah, and I to a certain extent I do understand that, and I remember when the Return to Monkey Island released a couple of years ago, and I was lucky enough to I reviewed it for the games magazine that I write, and you don't often get to experience that joy that you have this brand new adventure game, awesome adventure game at your hands, and there are no, because it hasn't been released, there are no walkthroughs. Of course, there was this integrated tip system, but you didn't have any kind of incentive to try and search that stuff online if you get stuck, and those were wonderful few days.
Yeah, I'm a bit mixed on that kind of stuff myself, because like we have gotten quite a few adventure games that we played pre-release, and the upside is that's about as close as you can to recreating how it was, say, 30 years ago. On the other hand, when you're playing that stuff for a deadline and you get stuck, it's not exactly the greatest thing for the review.
Yes, and I completely understand that, but it of course depends quite a lot on a game, because I think Return to Monkey Island is an excellent example of a logical game. While it does like all the other Monkey Island games as well, it bends the concept of everyday logic, but it doesn't break it. And another good example of this kind of game from recent times, in my opinion, is the Excavation of Hope's Barrow. Have you guys played that?
That's one of the ones we played. Yeah, that was an interesting adventure game. Kind of the like the diametric opposite of Monkey Island. Now that I think about it,
yeah,
it's about as serious as it gets.
Yes. And I got some serious, Gabriel Knight vibes from that game, and I absolutely loved it. It was a great adventure game.
Yeah, I remember liking it. Also, I remember that being one of the ones that we got stuck in.
Yeah, but I think that the puzzle selection in that game, I think it was at most parts pretty logical.
Yeah. I'm just saying, sometimes you're not able to thread the through line of logic in time.
Yeah,
I mean, that's kind of how it is with adventure games. If you're playing them without guides, you have to think about things. And sometimes the solution comes to you, hours, sometimes days. You put it away for a while. At least this is how it went for me.
Yeah, and it was pretty cool to see. I have a 11-year-old daughter who is at my place 2 days in 2 weeks, and I introduced Return to Monkey Island to her, and she actually was able to complete it. It took a couple of months, but she played it like an adventure game is supposed to be played. And when she was with her mother, she was unconsciously thinking about the puzzles, and when I went to get her, she was brimming with ideas that what to do next, because she got stuck 2 weeks ago. So it was nice to see that although these I think probably the majority of the young people think adventure games are pretty boring, but there's still hope.
I mean, it depends, but that does bring me to another question that I have to ask, since we're talking about classic point-and-click adventure games. How do you avoid, for lack of a better term, adventure game logic?
Well, I think that's a very good question, because I think the how could I phrase this the correct way, that I think when the adventure game logic works, I think it's in the it's a very, very narrow space between illogical and this everyday logic, and I think that
I guess it
that's
depends on the
something.
era, but yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that the best way to combat this is, of course, try to be logical, play other adventure games, see what works and what doesn't, and then, of course, testing the game. I'm in a very, very good position in that regard, because I have a lot of game critic colleagues, the folks that write to the same magazine as I do, and then they are very, 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 you get the honest opinion from them. And that has been a pretty good asset of getting rid of that illogical stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's not necessarily being illogical; it's also being esoteric with the logic. I think a good example of this is not a Sierra title, King's Quest V. One puzzle that sticks out immediately is the Yeti puzzle. For those who don't know, midway through the game, you have to get past a Yeti, and I guess to spoil the solution, you have to defeat him by throwing a pie in his face. And
this is not foreshadowed in any way, aside from the fact that you have a pie.
Right. It's something that you'll probably stumble upon more than you'll figure out,
or find out if you bought the hint book. Wink, wink.
Right, but let me get to what I'm getting at here, and that is, it makes logical sense from the point of view of comedy. Like it's a vaudeville routine, like only taken a bit more seriously. That makes sense. So, like, I can see how the puzzle was constructed externally, but it's like it doesn't make sense internally.
Yes, I completely understand, and like you mentioned, that I think that would have made sense, that if it had some foreshadowing, that you could have an inkling on your head that maybe that's something that you should do. But yeah, I completely understand, and it's a very good example.
Yeah, like, and of course there are the trying to remember like what adventure game it was where you had to do something, but you have to do it in the way the designers intended. Like, drawing a blank, but it's.
I'm reminded of the sticks and snakes thing from one of the King's Quest.
Yeah, something like that. It's like you have to use the item exactly as they wanted to, instead of how you would logically parse out.
Yeah, and another good example is the legendary mustache puzzle in Gabriel Knight 3.
Right. Where you have to.
You had to spread glue to the.
Yeah.
Yeah, you had to get the cat hair by gluing stuff. You had to spread glue under a door and then get a cat to run under it, and then you had a mustache that worked as a disguise. I think it was something along those lines.
Yeah, it's been a while since I played Gabriel Knight 3, but I do remember. And then there's the intentionally dense puzzles, but we'll leave Douglas Adams out of the conversation.
We'll keep for another 3 hours if we go through those.
At least with Douglas Adams, you get the feeling that it's probably an intentional joke that this is stupid.
Well, yeah, I mean, that was pretty much the premise of Starship Titanic. Like, everything there is kind of intentionally infuriatingly put together, let's say. Like,
just like the Titanic.
Yes. Like, at any rate, so what's the story of Hyperspace Inn? Like, Hyperdrive Inn. I keep wanting to call it Hyperspace. anyway, the point is, who are you? Why are you going through this infinite hotel and so on and so forth?
Well, you play as Aino. You are the daughter of the hotel's manager, Mr. Hilbert, and the manager has triggered a set of cataclysmic events that intend to destroy everything, and he has gone missing inside the Infinite Hotel, and Aino is tasked to find her and try to, stop the end of the world, and that's basically the gist of it. And father and our main character, they are a bit estranged from each other, so I think that brings in a nice, humane element to the story because the environments are pretty outlandish. So I think that's a good, grounding factor to the story.
Mm-hmm.
But that's basically it, and that's a good excuse to shove all kinds of crazy stuff along the way. So yeah,
it sounds like it. And I think another thing that deserves to be brought up here is the aesthetic, because according to the bullet point here, the graphics here are made entirely from scanned fabric samples.
Yeah, and I'm pretty proud of how the game looks, and I think it has this very, very unique vibe. And
I mean, this is a unique art style, if nothing else. Like I can't think of another game offhand that has its bits and bobs made out of actual fabric.
I've heard of similar gimmicks, but not that exact one, and not much in games.
Yeah.
Yeah, the reason why this kind of approach was selected was because at start I was thinking about making this into a 3D game, but there has to be quite a lot of content, and I don't have any kind of skills of in 3D modeling, and as an indie game developer, outsourcing 3D models, it's very, very expensive. So I got to thinking that how can I make a lot of content that looks great, but with a very, very limited budget. And I did some tests. I bought a scanner and scanned some shirts, tablecloth, and curtains from home, and textured some sprites with it, and it actually looked pretty cool. And then I thought that, well, this is the art direction that we are going to use. And then I got in contact with an upholstery company a couple of miles from where I live, and they were kind enough to give me, I think it was several cardboard boxes of these fabric samples. They're the size of a postcard. That when you are buying a sofa, you see these folders of these little bits and pieces of fabric. And I got them, and I started scanning. And there are, I think, I'm not sure of the exact number, but I think there's close to 1,200 different fabric samples that are used in the game.
That's quite a lot.
Yeah.
Again, I guess it is true. Necessity is the mother of invention.
Yeah, and as much as I like these big pixels, and I think that especially in adventure games, there are so many these neo retro games coming out that you have to have some kind of a idea that how you can differentiate yourself from that mass, because I think in many regards the modern adventure games have gotten stuck to the 90s aesthetics.
Yeah, I could definitely agree with that. If not 90s, then 80s. Not every adventure game.
Yeah, of course not, but there are a lot of these games that utilize the VGA resolution and color palette, and I think that's I didn't want to go that route.
Fair enough. And I suppose it's also worth asking about the soundtrack, because you post a fully original score with Finnish folk music influences.
Yeah.
I suppose it behooves me to ask, what are these folk music influences, since I don't think anyone here really knows much about Finnish folk music.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm glad to tell about it, because I live at a town called Kaustinen here in Finland, and it's somewhat of a world's capital of folk music. And where I come from, violin and other string instrument folk music, it has very, very long traditions. And I've been thinking that it's something that would be very, very cool to use in an adventure game. And I have this very, very talented composer at my disposal, Juhana Lehtiniemi, a Finnish composer who has actually studied here at Kaustinen. We have a music high school here, which it's not a big surprise that it focuses on folk music. So it was when combined to this fabric graphics, the folk music kind of nicely fits into it. But it's folk music influenced. There are a lot of modern twists and takes that are combined with these more traditional Finnish folk thingies. So and I think it's a very, very interesting concept, and it really works quite well in this game. And and we are using Fmod in the game, which means that the soundtrack reacts to stuff that is happening in the game. So in a vein, it's a bit similar to the iMuse system LucasArts used back in the 90s.
Right. And so we are running low on time here. So just a few more questions before we wrap things up. First of all, you are participating in the Steam Summer Next Fest, correct?
Yes, that's right.
Which means there already is, but you have updated the Hyperdrive in demo that's currently available.
Yeah, actually, it was released this week. It's a major update that if you haven't have played the previous demo, then you should definitely try out the revised one. There's triple the content compared to the old one. A lot of quality of life updates. It looks generally better. There are some significant performance updates, and in general, it's a lot more. Feels a lot more finished, and you should definitely give it a go. And the next fest starts on Monday, but we were in a mood of some summer festivities, so we decided that we will launch the demo early.
And the demo will stay up even after next fest, right?
Yes, we are not taking it anywhere, so you can play it at whenever you find time for it. I think there's actually I would say that there's content for I think at least for 1 hour, so there is pretty much all kind of stuff for you to explore. So definitely do give it a go.
And it looks like you are targeting a release month of October of this year. So I suppose that begs the question: exactly what is left in terms of game development, polish, and all of that business?
Well, we are releasing the game in October 21st, and I think we are more than able to keep that date, because we are currently in early alpha with the game, and like I mentioned, we are running first tests at the moment, and the last 4 months or so they will be used to polish the game, because we want to launch as finished as possible product there. And of course, I am not a native English speaker, so there's a lot of rewrites to be done, and of course proofreading and such. So there is still, a hell of a lot of work to be done. And of course, there's some additional content that needs to be added there. And hopefully, if there's time left, we can do more of that. I would really much like to have, maybe some extra levels, or at least some a little bit more complex puzzles than we currently have at place. There are some that need to be, extended a bit. And of course, we've been talking about the logic of adventure games. There's a lot of work to be done in that regard, that everything makes sense and, there is enough foreshadowing and such that, we want this game to be easy to pick up, but also have depth to it so that you can spend several hours on it. And we want the players to have this how can I say it, fast paced but still logical experience. So yeah, polish and debugging, that's probably what's going to happen in the next 4 months.
Makes sense. And have you selected a price yet?
Yeah, we have. I think it's the price of the game will be $14.99, and I think that's a pretty good estimate. And you will get enough bang for that kind of price tag.
Good. Right. So I'll see if my colleagues here have any final questions for you.
I guess the only last question I have is: the game going to be fully self-contained, or because I know back in the 80s there was a big thing of calling actual phone number, or I guess in this day and age would be like a Discord bot or something like that, or is everything just in the game?
Well, yes, it's going to be self-contained. There was this one friend of mine. There is this in one level there is this interactive therapist that you can ask for advice using the Sierra type parser, and he was suggesting me that I should link chat GPT with it. I said, no way. So yeah, everything is kept inside the game.
All right, that's good to know, because eventually phone numbers get shut down. There's a possibility that Discord could one day go away, or at least the hooks for a bot could go away. So this way, everything's all self-contained. This thing can stay as it is forever.
Yeah.
Wolf.
Yep.
Anyway, Galax, do you have anything to add?
I think I'm good, but it does look interesting.
Yeah, that's nice to hear. Thank you.
Indeed. Right. So I want to thank you for taking time out of your schedule and being with us here today to talk about your game.
Yeah, thanks. It was definitely my pleasure.
Indeed. Right. So the game is Hyperdrive In. Its demo is currently available on Steam. It apparently will last you about an hour, give or take, your acumen toward adventure game puzzles. With a planned release date of October 21st, 2024, at a price of $14.99 USD. So be sure to go list it today.
Yeah, that would be really much appreciated.
Indeed. So with that in mind, that'll about do it for us here today. As always, be sure to tune in for the Sunday reviews. And until then, I shall wish you good gaming.
Yeah.